That's good. Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel, Season and Serve. If you're new here, my name is Melissa and I share seasonal living content, including everything from cooking to gardening, decorating our home for the seasons, and of course, entertaining. But today we are in the kitchen this morning and we are making a delicious recipe for cottage cheese toast. I know cottage cheese toast has been trending for quite a while on social media, but in today's video, I'm going to show you 5 different ways that we can take this traditional, really great high protein recipe and make it gourmet with lots of local and seasonal ingredients. So in today's video, I'm going to show you how to make a tomato confit cottage cheese toast, a Greek Spanakopita cottage cheese toast, a very luxurious and elegant truffle and mushroom cottage cheese toast, as well as a Japanese-inspired Tamago cottage cheese toast. And we're going to round it out with a delicious sweet version of an apricot cottage cheese toast with lots of honey and pistachios. So if you want to see how to make these gourmet cottage cheese toasts, just keep on watching. So lately, we've been eating a lot of cottage cheese toast for breakfast because it is a really great versatile recipe and it is super high protein. And honestly, I forgot that cottage cheese existed for quite a few years now. And that's because I had tried a bunch of different brands that I just did not like. And I understand cottage cheese is a very divisive ingredient. You either really like it or you don't like it at all. And I was in the don't like it at all camp until about 2 months ago when I discovered the Avalon cottage cheese. Now this is not sponsored by Avalon, but Avalon, if you're watching, call me. But we go to Avalon Dairy basically every week to get our milk, our cream, our yogurt. And when we were there, we saw that they carry cottage cheese. So we decided to give it a go. And this is the best cottage cheese that I've ever had. Now, all their dairy products are made with really good, high quality local milk here from the Lower Mainland in British Columbia. And it is the best, like by far. And what I really like about this is because they use such high quality milk, the cottage cheese is super creamy and it doesn't have that sour, tangy flavor. It's still there, but it is very subtle. But that is one thing that I really hated about cottage cheese before and trying other brands. It was just too sour and the texture was also sometimes a little bit too soft. It felt just kind of like mush. But this cottage cheese has really nice large pieces of cottage cheese and is just in a nice creamy sauce. Sauce, I guess you call it. And they also have varying fat percentages. They have a 1% and a 2%, but I am a 2% girly always for everything. So we are using the 2% cottage cheese today. And I will say before we get into cooking that some of the toppings that I'm putting on these cottage cheese toasts do require a bit of work and you don't have to make them the day you want to enjoy it. You can definitely do a little bit of a meal prep situation and make the toppings and keep them in the fridge. And then when you want to eat your breakfast, just take it out, assemble your toast, and enjoy. With all that said, let's get to cooking. And I'm actually going to go and grab some ingredients from my garden, and then we'll get to making our tomato confit cottage cheese toast. All right, so we got our basil and thyme from the garden. I'm just going to give these a really quick wash, and then we'll get to making the tomato confit. Actually, I'm going to preheat the oven to 425 degrees, and we're going to roast the tomatoes in the oven. It's going to be so good. All right, all clean and washed. So I have a couple sprigs of basil as well as 1 sprig of thyme from the garden. And I'm going to add the thyme into the tomatoes for now. And I'm not going to put the basil in until the very end once it's cooked. But I also have some garlic that we're going to add. And the garlic, look at how tiny it is. I have to show you up close. This is hilarious. That is my garlic compared to the size of my thumb. This I tried to grow in my garden and I got a couple really tiny ones, but they're like still good to use. So I would consider this like 1 clove of garlic. So all we're gonna do is cut the garlic. I'm gonna take the stem off. I'm actually just gonna cut it right through the middle so it exposes all the cloves. Just like this. Look at that. That is adorable. I love it. So then all we're going to do is take our halved garlic clove here, pop it in, and then we're going to add our olive oil on top. So we're going to just pour the olive oil all over, and you just want to pour enough so it comes halfway up the tomatoes. We're not going to use a lot of olive oil, but you want it at least to come halfway up the tomatoes. And then for the final touch, we're going to add a little sprinkling of salt just to kind of bring out the moisture of the tomatoes. And that is it. All we're going to do now is just pop this in the oven at 425 degrees Fahrenheit for about 25 minutes until the tomatoes just kind of burst open. And then we'll let this cool before we assemble our cottage cheese toast. It's going to smell so good in here in about like 5 minutes. All right, now our tomato confit is done. It is super hot, so be careful when you take it out of the oven. But to finish this off, we're just going to add a little dash of red wine vinegar, just about a tablespoon. And then we're going to let this cool completely because it is super hot. And then once that's cooled, we'll assemble our toast. So for our toast, I am going to be adding our toast to the toaster, and we're just going to toast this until it gets light brown. We don't want to toast it all the way because we are going to be cooking it in the oven. So toast that until it's light brown. And for my toast, I am using the Silver Hills Squirrely bread. We get this from Costco and it is so good and also locally made here in BC. We love that. So we have our tomato confit all cooled here. And now we're going to assemble our toast. And for the assembly, we're just going to add a 1/4 cup of cottage cheese. And basically each of these toasts takes about a 1/4 cup of cottage cheese. But it really depends on the size of your bread. You just want to kind of spread it out so that it is all across your bread. If there's any little pieces that fall over, pick those up and put them back on. Now, we're not going to put the tomatoes on top and then cook it. We're actually going to bake the cottage cheese first. And this is going to go in the oven at 425 degrees Fahrenheit for about 10 minutes. You just want the cottage cheese to kind of warm up and start to turn a light golden brown on top. Alternatively, if you made the tomato confit ahead of time and it's cold from your fridge, put it on top of the cottage cheese and then bake it again for about 10 to 11 minutes at 425 degrees Fahrenheit. So once the cottage cheese is baked and it's warmed through, you can also see it's going a little bit golden brown on the edges as well. We're going to add our cooked tomato confit. And I like to use a fork to do this because I don't want too much oil on it. You do want to keep it relatively healthy. So we're just going to spoon these beautiful bursting tomatoes on top. And oh my gosh, this smells absolutely amazing. Even when the tomato confit is cooled off, you can still smell that garlic, that thyme. It is fabulous. It looks amazing just like this, but we are going to add an extra little flourish of basil leaves. And wow, look at that amazing cottage cheese toast. That is perfect for summer when tomatoes are in season, and basil, honestly, a match made in heaven. So we thought that looked amazing. Wait till you see the Spanakopita inspired cottage cheese toast. We're going to be using fresh spinach in this recipe, so let me show you how to prepare it. All right, so we'll start off by cutting the spinach, and I'm just going to take the ends off. We're not going to use these guys, so these are going to go in the compost. And I'm going to use the stems and the leaves, but all I'm going to do is just really finely chop it, just like this. And then I'm just going to run the knife through it a couple times this way to chop it into smaller pieces. And now we're going to take the spinach and cook it in a frying pan, and you're going to see how much this actually wilts down. It'll be less than a quarter of this once it's cooked. To a small frying pan, I'm going to add about a teaspoon of oil, just olive oil I like to use for cooking. And then once that's hot, I'm going to add a small clove of garlic that I've finely chopped. And then once that starts to sizzle, we're going to add in all of that spinach that we chopped up. And give that a quick stir, and you can see how fast it actually cooks down. It's pretty incredible how much water is actually in spinach. And then once it gets cooked down just like this and it's all soft, we're going to take it off the heat, and then we're going to wring out all the water that's in the spinach. So we're just going to add the drained spinach to a bowl here. So I've just added that into the bowl, and we are actually going to mix the cottage cheese into the filling and then spread it on the toast. So a little bit different than the first one. I'm going to crumble in some feta cheese. And I'm just using a really good cow's feta here. It's actually probably a little bit too much. You want to do about a tablespoon of feta cheese, just like that. And then for some extra flavor, I'm going to add some fresh dill. Dill is always so good in Spanakopita, so I just add probably about a teaspoon or so, and I just tear it with my hands because it's kind of a pain to chop. And then we're going to add a 1/4 cup of our cottage cheese. Just like that, and then we're going to give everything a mix. And then finally, I'm going to add a little bit of ground black pepper. I'm not going to add salt because there's feta cheese in here and the cottage cheese is on the saltier side. So I just think for my cottage cheese, the pepper alone is just enough. And I actually almost forgot, we are gonna add in some dried onion. You can use fresh onion, but I have a big container of dried onion that I'm trying to use up. And we're gonna add that in to our Spanakopita. And now we'll assemble our cottage cheese toast. Now to assemble the Spanakopita toast, I have a lightly toasted piece of bread here, and we're gonna add the filling that we made directly on top of that. This will get a little bit messy. Guaranteed there is gonna be stuff that falls off your toast. The quantity of filling that you add here will really depend on the size of your toast. So I made a little bit too much, but you can add as much or as little as you want. I would say though, not to have the filling go more than 1.5 centimeters to 2 centimeters thick. Otherwise it doesn't really cook through properly. So a thickness just like that is actually perfect. So now with this, we're going to bake this again in the oven at 425 degrees Fahrenheit for about 10 to 11 minutes again. Then when it comes out, we're going to garnish with some lemon zest and then some fresh dill. So once the Spanakopita toast is baked, this is what it looks like. Beautifully starting to go nice golden brown. And as a final flourish, we're going to zest a little bit of lemon juice right on top. This will just give it a little bit more freshness and add some pretty color. And then if desired, you can add a couple more sprigs of dill. I like the fresh dill right at the end. It makes it taste so fresh and amazing. There we go. Look at that. Now this is a toast you're going to want to wake up and enjoy. This Spanakopita toast is full of protein and lots of spinach, and it is just so flavorful and delicious. All right, so next up, we are gonna make probably the most gourmet of all these cottage cheese toasts. We are doing a truffle and mushroom toast. And this only has just a couple ingredients. I have some mushrooms, some truffle oil, and parsley, and of course, the cottage cheese and the toast. I think this is a super good recipe to enjoy in the fall because mushrooms are in season then, and there's so many different varieties. Today, I'm just using creminis, but you can use oyster mushrooms, Japanese like shimeji mushrooms, or you can even go like full gourmet and do like chanterelles. If you do that, invite me over because I would love that. But all we're gonna do for this is just slice the mushrooms and then cook them in a bit of olive oil. I'm not gonna add any garlic because I want it to really be mushroom and truffle forward. So we're just gonna chop up a couple mushrooms and fry them up. So you want them about 1 centimeter thick, I would say. Want them to be a little bit meaty when you bite into them. And today I'm using an amazing truffle oil that we got at Le Grand Épicerie last year when we were in Paris. This stuff is so good. But honestly, any sort of good black truffle oil or white truffle oil will do. So kind of just like the spinach, these mushrooms are going to cook down quite a bit. They also hold a lot of water. So let's get these in the frying pan with just a bit of oil and fry them up. Splash. So now that our mushrooms are all fried and golden brown, I'm going to add the tiniest little bit of butter into here. We don't want to put too much because we already cooked them in oil, but the butter just adds a nice luxurious decadent flavor. And we're going to mix that through. And then we're going to add just a couple drops of our truffle oil. Obviously we do this at the end when the mushrooms have stopped cooking. Oh my gosh, just that little tiny drizzle. This one might not be super healthy for you, but oh god, this is delicious. So now that everything is all delicious and smelling like truffle, we're gonna assemble our toasts. So let's go. Now to assemble our truffle and mushroom cottage cheese toast, we're gonna add, again, a 1/4 cup of cottage cheese to our toast here. Make sure it's all nice and spread out. And then we're gonna just pile on our mushrooms. And then we're going to cook this in the oven. Again, same temperature, same time, 425 degrees Fahrenheit for about 10 to 11 minutes. And it is going to smell amazing. So I like to do a big pile of mushrooms on here, as you can see. And then once this is baked and it's all warmed through, we're going to sprinkle it with some parsley and maybe, if we're feeling fancy, add a little bit more truffle oil. So let's get this in the oven. All right, so this is the truffle mushroom, all baked, so it's all steamy and amazing. Now we're just gonna garnish with a little bit of the chopped parsley just to give it some really nice color. And we're also gonna drizzle just a little bit more truffle oil. Just a little bit, not that much. There we go. Beautiful. So that is our incredible truffle and mushroom cottage cheese toast. How gourmet. All right, so now we're gonna make a Japanese-inspired Tamago cottage cheese toast. And just kind of like the Spanakopita one we made, we're actually gonna mix the cottage cheese into the filling this time. And the filling is basically scrambled eggs. So for this one, we're gonna crack some eggs into a bowl. These are just large organic eggs. We love organic. Always wash your hands after handling eggs. And then we're gonna add in our cottage cheese, again, around 1/4 cup. We got that. And then the special ingredient for this is some dashi powder. And I bought a huge container of dashi powder. It was a little bit too much, but we're just gonna add like 1/4 teaspoon, just like this. And this kind of tastes like dried fish, bonito. It has a lot of umami flavor, and it's what you typically taste in like a miso soup, and it's so good. So you just only need a tiny little bit for this because it is kind of salty and it does a really good job at flavoring the eggs. Now we're just going to scramble up our eggs, and then we're going to add on some sliced scallions at the end along with some furikake seasoning. So let's make our eggs. Oh, so exciting. So unlike the other cottage cheese toast, we don't have to bake this one. We can just assemble this right away on our toasted piece of bread. And this one is so packed with protein. You have 2 eggs and cottage cheese. So if you're really trying to hit your protein goals, this one will definitely do it for you in the morning. And I should say this recipe was inspired by our trip to Japan a few years ago. Japan, in my opinion, has the best eggs of all time. They're better than Canada, they're better than Europe. They are just so delicious. And I just loved eating the eggs there. So I decided to make a little Japanese-inspired cottage cheese toast here. And I absolutely love it. Clean up that plate because presentation matters for you guys. If it was just me, I'd eat it like as is. But since you're here with me, we're going to make it nice. Now as a final flourish, we're going to add some furikake seasoning. And this is just a seaweed and sesame seed seasoning. I'm just going to put that right on top. Oh, just like that, not too much. And then we're going to add some freshly chopped scallions right in the middle, just in a nice pile. Let it cascade, let it fall. Oh my gosh. Look at how beautiful. So I just cleaned with the plate once more for you guys. And I'm going to get a little fancy by adding some chili strands. We actually got these in Japan, but these sometimes you'll see on top of ramen when you get that at a ramen shop, and it's just really thinly sliced chili. I think that's going to add a little nice touch, and I can finally use this after a couple years. So add a couple little strands. Oh my gosh, it smells really good. Look at that. And there you have the best Tamago cottage cheese toast. Now, last but not least, we are going to make a sweet version of a cottage cheese toast, and we're going to make it gourmet with beautiful apricots. It is summer right now, and apricots are in season, and these are actually from the Okanagan, and they smell amazing. So all you have to do is take a couple apricots, cut them in half. I just like to rotate my knife through the apricot like that and twist it to pull it apart. Compost the seed. Then all you have to do is just cut it into little slices, probably 1/2 centimeter thick for this one. So I'm going to finish slicing up the rest of the apricots, and then I'll show you how to assemble and bake it. Now to assemble our toast, we have our nice lightly toasted piece of bread here, and we're going to top it again with about 1/4 cup of the cottage cheese. So I'm just going to dump that on there and spread it right on out, all the way to the edges. And then we'll arrange our sliced apricots on top. I just like to kind of overlap them a little bit so it looks really pretty. And this version is really good fresh, but I really like it baked because it kind of caramelizes the apricots a little bit and makes them a little bit more soft. But that's all you have to do. Just layer those on, and then we're going to drizzle it up with some honey before we bake it. And the honey kind of helps caramelize the apricots a bit more and just makes it so decadent and delicious. Just a little bit of honey, just like that. So we're going to bake this up in the oven, and then when it comes out, we're going to sprinkle it with some chopped pistachios, and we're going to add a little bit of fresh basil on as well. So this is what the apricot toast looks like when it is baked. You can see the apricots have shriveled up a little bit, and that honey has really made them nice and shiny and caramelized and beautiful. And now we're going to sprinkle over some beautiful crushed pistachios. This is so good. This is very like a Middle Eastern inspired, or like Turkish, I would say. Nice sprinkling of pistachios. Oh, that is beautiful. And then just for good measure, a little tiny bit of extra honey. So at the very end. Wow. We're going to add some freshly chopped basil. This is optional, but apricots and basil are really great together and they taste delicious. So that is our amazing sweet apricot cottage cheese toast. So that is it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed watching me make these amazing 5 gourmet cottage cheese toasts today. Every single one looks amazing, but if I had to pick my favorite, it would definitely be the truffle and mushroom. I am a huge truffle fan, and I can still smell it from here. It smells so good. So when I'm done filming, that one's going to be devoured first. Well, that one's my favorite. Now let me know your favorite, or the one that you're going to be trying first, in the comments below. I'm super curious to see what everyone is interested in. I had so much fun making these recipes, and I know you will too. And if you want the full recipes, you can get those on my website, which I'll leave linked in the description box below. And if you want more ideas for delicious seasonal recipes or seasonal living tips, make sure to follow me here on YouTube, so hit that red subscribe button, and also check me out on Instagram and TikTok as well. And with that, thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to enjoy the best of the season every day. Now I'm going to eat this truffle mushroom toast.